Yes.
Thank you all for being here, and especially our high school friends. I'm glad, so glad that you guys could be here. So, please, when you go through the hall downstairs into the equipment, ask questions. Talk to these folks. They'll talk to you. It's a good way to kind of learn about what this field is about. So the gist of today is I'm trying to find somebody to replace me. Right? It's time. I'm ready to go. I need somebody to fill in the spot. We can't find anybody. So that's kind of in a nutshell. Technology. So anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell what we're doing. My name is Tim Cordes. I am a certified biomedical electronic technician at the University of Kansas Hospital here in town. My friend here is Danielle McGeary. She is a VP of HTM at AAMI. AAMI is the Bible for biomed. So a lot of our standards, job descriptions, how you set up a program, what you do is driven out of a lot of really good information that comes from AAMI. Also is the opportunity, and Danielle has developed a lot of this herself, the opportunity to talk about how do you get into biomed, what's the steps, how do you progress your career. So anyway, what I'm going to talk to you about, my piece of it is what we've done locally to try to help this gap. The Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2019 said that there was 54,000 medical equipment repairers in the United States. AAMI has estimated that at least 10% of those are going to be gone in the next probably about 7 years. So there's a lot of opportunity right ahead of you guys. As the slide says, I'm not going to read exactly from it, but around 2015, this became apparent, real apparent. AAMI started taking some steps to do that. Standardized job descriptions, put together some materials to help build programs, show career progressions. Here locally, about 2018, we watched what I would call the musical chair effect. So somebody left one place, went to another. That started a landslide of people moving from place to place. Within about 3 months, there was a hospital that was left with nothing. No, there wasn't anybody to pick from. There wasn't anybody coming into the field, so they were left with a shortage. When that happens, a lot of times what hospitals have to do is hire somebody temporarily. And so that's what they've had to do. So there was a group of us that kind of got together to talk about it. And what do we need to do? So as we did talk about it, the Children's Mercy Hospital, I assume everybody knows that hospital, was working with State Technical College in Missouri on a biomed program. So biomeds would attend school there, they come up to Children's Mercy for an internship, and more often than not, they got hired. So as the leaders in the area got to looking at that, that's a great model. Let's piggyback on that. And so we started to do that. As we did, one of the things that came together was, well, this internship should be paid. We want to have a paid internship, but we don't want a competitive situation, right? So we kind of picked the sort of a salary range. Is this where it is, and it's up to the individual hospital. But we thought that would be a better attraction. Plus, during the summer months when typically the internship is, you need money, right? You've been going to school all year long. That's the only time you get to earn something. So we reached out to Johnson County Community College, and some years ago they had an actual biomed program. So they remembered some of us, although the program had stopped some time ago. They were interested in talking to us again. So we got on their board of advisors and began talking about how could we make this work. We started with doing some presentations to the electronics technology students there, and there was some interest. So, and then about, late 2018, we started talking amongst ourselves again about how do we develop a biomed person, right? Because there's not an actual program in Kansas City. There's the one in State Tech, and we already know it's proven. But how many kids are going to get to go from Kansas City down to State Tech and then come back to work? Seemed kind of hard. So we got with Drew, who happens to be sitting in the back there, and some of the program directors at Johnson County for the electronics technology program, and started some discussions. How could we make this work? What we ended up with is the Electronics Associate's Degree program has, of course, electives. When we looked at those electives as compared to the biomed certificate classes at State Tech, well, they kind of matched. And so what we ended up doing, and thanks again to Drew and the folks at Johnson County, they said, we can recognize those credits as electives to the associate program, but we need the internship. So because Johnson County has a great electronics lab, and you get to take stuff apart and repair things, right? But none of it's medical equipment. Maybe someday that'll change, but right now it isn't. So we need that internship, and so that's kind of what's on our plate now, is to get those internships developed to do that. So we have a program in place. It's there. You can actually do that. You'll spend a year and a half at Johnson County Community College in C classes. The next semester doing online classes through State Tech, and then an internship at one of the local hospitals. What you end up with is an associate's degree with a biomed certificate. Great, it's a great kickstart right into a biomed job. So we started to promote it. My good friend Wayne in the back and I, we went to Johnson County with a career fair, and we were talking about it and how we get this thing going. And then COVID happened. So we just, everything stopped. And so we really haven't been able to do anything since. And now here we are again, starting back up again. So that's where we're at. One of the ways that and where we are now is, of course, we've got this relationship we've been developing with the Lathrop Technical School. There's another school in St. Joseph, Missouri that we're doing this, trying to develop the same type of relationship. And that's really just raise awareness, because I think a lot of us that have been in the field, we happened into this field. It wasn't like there was a counselor who said, hey, you should be a biomed person. Never happened. Nobody ever talked to us about that. So that's part of what we were doing today, is try to raise that awareness. What we'll be doing is we'll hopefully come out and do some presentations at your school and some of the other schools and some of the high schools around. We're doing this by getting on your board of advisors, so we know when you guys are having career fairs, when they are, what to do, is there interest, and then we've been slowly gathering some equipment so we could actually do some show and tell, let you guys play with the stuff a little bit, because I think that's where it really sinks in. So anyway, that's kind of where we are. And one of the things, and this is talking a little bit to our seasoned professionals that are in the room, is we need the push to get internships in our facilities. Or apprenticeships. Yes, you'll learn about apprenticeships really quickly, and I think it's an excellent opportunity. Again, we have to thank Amy for setting this up, and I think specifically Danielle for spearheading. So
we had 100 volunteers that helped create it. So
yeah, well, there's that.
I don't do anything alone.
But anyway, so that's kind of the end of what I just wanted to bring you up to speed of what our local association is doing. The Healthcare Technology Management Association of the Midwest, HTMA, is a little easier to remember by. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Danielle, who will talk about HTM in a box and also the apprenticeship program.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming out today. So are you guys all in high school?
Yep.
What? How many of you guys are freshmen? Sophomores? Juniors? How many are you seniors? Perfect. So how many of you have heard of Biomed or HTM? They're the same thing. Perfect. Well, I'm going to go over it today and explain what it is. Let me see if I can do. Can I do it without it? Do I have to wear this? I'll talk loud. I don't have the video on. Let's put this on. All right. So I'm going to go through HTM in a box. So for those of you who are in the field, HTM in a box is a tool that we created about a year and a half ago to give everyone the opportunity to promote HTM. So basically, you know, like we talked about, there's a huge workforce deficit, and this is really great for all of you because you will find a job. About 50% of our field is over the age of 50 right now. So that means in the next 10 to 15 years, there'll be a mass exodus of people from our field, giving you all a lot of opportunities to move up and really be successful in the field. Just quickly, my background. I do work for the association called AAMI right now. My name is Danielle, not Amy. A lot of people think my name is Amy. And I did work in the field prior to coming into this role. I started out, like many of you, just troubleshooting and doing maintenance on infusion pumps and then working my way up. I was a clinical engineer at Hartford Hospital for about 7 years, where I did a lot of work with EKGs, machines in the Muse system, for those of you who are familiar with that. And then I went over to the VA in Boston. I'm based in New England. I've done my whole career in New England. And I was the director of the VA Boston Healthcare System's clinical engineering department. That's a 5-hospital system up there. So, you know, we love our veterans, and it was a great opportunity for public service and to give back. And then I went over to the third-party side for about a year. I worked for Aramark before they became TriMedics. And I was a district manager in the Northeast and had about 200 people on my chain of command and about 40 HTM departments. So before we start, you're going to hear people saying biomed, clinical engineering, HTM. They are all the same. We haven't really standardized on a term to call the field, but I don't want there to be any confusion. We're just the people in the hospitals that maintain and manage all of the medical equipment. So there's a HTM or biomed department in every hospital in the country. So, you know, if you reach out to your local hospitals, hopefully you'll be able to find that. So I am just going to quickly switch over this presentation. Oops, escape. So for those of you in the field, since there is a shortage of people, we decided to make this tool called HTM in a box. It's an online Prezi presentation. If you're not familiar with Prezi, it's basically PowerPoint on steroids. It's interactive, and you'll see, and embedded within it, there are 3 presentations. So depending upon what age group you're talking to, there's a middle school presentation, a high school, or an adult version. So today, since it's a high school students, I'm going to use the high school presentation, but no, the middle school one is very basic. It talks very high level, like, and I can show it afterwards, just so you can kind of see the difference, how the look of each presentation is slightly different. And we wanted to take away the burden of having to create a beautiful presentation from people, because we knew that that was hindering people going out in the field. So now with this, everyone has access to this. You don't need to be a member. It's free to everyone. Anyone can use it. So please take advantage of it. You know, we spent a lot of time putting it together with a lot of volunteers, and hopefully you all like it. So I'm going to present this explaining HTM, since the majority of people in here are here to learn about the field. So for those of you who work in the field, just bear with me as I go through this. But again, if you go to AAMI.org/HTM in a box, you can access everything. There is also a list of all the HTM 2-year and 4-year academic programs on that site. There's talking points if you're not sure what to say. There's a cold calling script for emails and phone calls if you're trying to call a local organization or high school to get a presentation, if you're not good on the fly. And I'm trying to think what else is on the site. Well, actually, if we go to it, I can show you. So HTM in a box, here's the site. You don't need to put the HTM. If you just type in HTM in a box, it'll come up. There's a video and orientation, but you'll see it today. There's talking points. Let's see. Oh, there's our career brochure. And again, we have the career brochures planted at AAMI. So if any of you are going out to schools, just shoot me an email and we'll send you a bunch of them, and it's for you to hand out at all the presentations. And then if you click on this, it'll load the Prezi presentation that just came up. So we're going to go through the high school one today. So I have to say, after working in the field, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. It is super rewarding. Every day you learn something new. You get to work with the coolest and greatest technology in the hospital. And at the end of the day, you're helping patients and their loved ones because your work directly impacts patient care. You're part of the clinical care team. So it's really a great career. Like many of us, I found it by accident. I was a senior in college, having no idea what I was going to do. And her name by the man Frank Painter came in and gave a presentation about clinical engineering. I went to the University of Connecticut or UConn and talked about, this field and how they had a master's degree program there. And when they talked about how you could be an engineer in the hospital and work with patients and caregivers, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I didn't want to be an engineer in research and development or working in a lab. That's just not me. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do until I heard of this, and I applied, and and the rest is history. And I'm so glad I made that decision. So all of these pictures in here are from our Htm campaign. They're real people working in the field. These aren't models or anything like that. They're people who love what they do, and we've worked them in to our presentation. So this person basically talks about Bmat or HTM, about being like the backstage personnel at a rock concert, right? They're all making sure everything's ready to go for showtime. And that's what we do with the medical equipment. We need to make sure it works, it's safe, it's set up, it's available when patients and their loved ones need it most. So what do HTM professionals do? So we work with doctors and nurses to make hospitals safer, right? So you're not just sitting there fixing equipment all day long. Issues come up throughout the day, and you need to, you work in multidisciplinary teams with all different types of clinicians to help solve problems by using the technology. We help pick out medical equipment and help select it with clinical care teams. So you're involved in the purchasing. Obviously, we fix the medical equipment when it breaks. So we're looking for people with some technical skills. You train people how to use it. So every now and then, hospitals swap out their fleets of equipment, whether it's infusion pumps or like pulse oximeters, the red light that goes on your finger to look at your blood. Yes, there you go. To look at your blood oxygen level. How many of you actually been in a hospital? Perfect. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Some people, you'd be surprised when I do it. Some people haven't, and they're not really familiar with everything that's in there. Or the MRIs and the CAT scans and surgical robots. We handle it all. Let's see. And then we partner with IT. Obviously, cybersecurity has been a hot topic. Our medical devices are also prone to being hacked. So we need to work with our IT departments to make sure they're safe and secure, because they contain a lot of patient information that's really, that hackers really want. And we also get involved in the design of new hospital and care areas. This was the funnest part of what when I worked in the field. I loved working with the architects and the designers, looking at all the plans, figuring out where the equipment was going to go. And you have to make sure, everything is so precise in a hospital. The outlets just don't spontaneously end up behind the medical device, right? You don't want people tripping over them. So you need to make sure everything's placed properly, whether it's oxygen for a ventilator, air. So we get involved in all of that and make sure everything's all laid out properly. So why would you want to do this, right? So there is a need, and I think Tim has expressed that. We have a shortage of people, and a lot of that is because people don't know this field exists. People walk in the hospitals every day and take all the medical equipment for granted. No one thinks about where it came from, who picked it out, what happens if it doesn't work. And because we're kind of all behind the scenes. Most of the time our offices are located in basements where people never go, but we do, but we're always around. So a lot of people don't think about what happens behind the scenes. Pay and benefits are good, and the medical device industry is just growing and growing. By 2023, it's going to be at $208 billion, and hospitals just want, keep acquiring more equipment. As new technology comes out, every hospital wants to have the latest and greatest equipment for their patients. We surveyed people a couple of years back, and more than 80% of people said they loved their job. So job satisfaction is high. Security is high. I mean, you guys are needed. You're an integral part of the hospital. And there are so many options for where you can work. You can work in the hospital and be employed directly by the hospital. There are third parties that outsource and employ the staff and put them in the hospital. And there's just medical equipment, you know, companies that repair equipment too, where you can be working for one of those. So there's a lot of opportunity. Anywhere you know, there's, like I said, every hospital has HTM professionals or biomeds or BMETs. So you can work anywhere you want. So if you want to stay in Kansas City, you can. If you want to get out and move somewhere else, that opportunity is there. So biomedical, so there's two occupations predominantly within the field, the BMET, which is the biomedical equipment technician, and the clinical engineer. So the BMETs troubleshoot and perform maintenance on medical equipment. They are the super technical people that work with all the equipment. You know, they manage multi-million-dollar systems. You know, as you get more skills, you can specialize in radiology, respiratory anesthesia, really high-end type of pieces of equipment with specialized training. So as you learn more, you can move up in the field. You help set up and configure new equipment. Again, you work with IT. You provide training and support to clinicians. You know, the nurses love the BMETs. Whenever something doesn't work, they always come to you. You know, you build a great relationship with the staff, predominantly nursing, when you're there, because when something doesn't work technically, you're the first person that they call.
Can I interject something?
Yes.
So one of the things I learned early on was half the problem is having that relationship with the nurse that has the problem. If you've got that relationship established before, the problem's already half solved, because she will be really open to talk, he or she will be open to talking to you about what it's doing, because you'll hear a lot of things about a piece of equipment and what it's doing. It made this noise, it made that noise, and that may or may not be what the actual problem is. So that, I can't stress enough how important that relationship with your customers is. So
when you walk through the hospitals and walk through the halls of the hospital, chances are everyone will know you, at least in the unit that you cover, the unit that you're there. You know, they'll say good morning to you. They're always pulling you aside. So it's really a great relationship. And a big part is being able to translate non-technical talk into technical talk, because you're dealing with clinicians, right? So they're not technical by nature. They're treating a patient, they want the equipment to work immediately. If it's not working, you know, you need to help them through that. So having great customer service skills is really paramount to be successful in the field. So how do you become a BMET if you're interested? You know, I would suggest learn as much as you can about electronics, technology, and the human body. You can consider a trade in electronics or IT. So there are 2 and 4-year academic programs. I know Tim mentioned some of them local in the area, which you guys are lucky to have some. There's a lot of places in the country that don't have any schools, biomed schools at all. So you would go, if you on the path to go to college, you could do a 2 years electronics degree, biomedical technology. The military in San Antonio, Texas, if you're interested in serving the country, has a phenomenal BMET school down in San Antonio. Every 8 weeks, they onboard new people. And then there's some of the best BMETs out there. I don't know, did you go through it? Yeah. So would you recommend it? Yeah, I think it's amazing. So if that's something you're interested in, the military has a school. You can study electronics or technology at a community college. And I would highly suggest, if you're interested, to volunteer at a local hospital. And for the people that work in the field, I would recommend taking on volunteers if you can. That was always my favorite part of the job, was working with the students, teaching them and growing our next generation, because it's so needed. And there's also a BMET Apprenticeship program formally through the Department of Labor now. I have to update this slide, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But it's a 2-year program that you work 2 years or 6,000 hours, and there's a slew of related learning that goes on with it. So what would happen if you did that is it's employer paid, so they pay you 40 hours a week to work. They're not required to pay you benefits, but most employers do. And then there's the Department of Labor requires 144 hours of additional learning each year that we've broken out into a curriculum. It does include 2 college courses, anatomy and physiology and college math. And all of that required learning is paid for by the employer. And for those of you who are employers out there, you can follow your own employee reimbursement policy. So if you're required to make them pay up front and then reimburse them after they pass, there's no risk there. So you don't have to pay for it 10 times if they keep failing it. The apprenticeship does require 3 certifications, the CAB-T, which is our newest entry-level certification, the IT Fundamentals by CompTIA, which is an IT certification, since a lot of work involves IT, and you end by taking the CBET test, and you end up in candidate status. And once you have 4 years of experience, you get 2 in the apprenticeship. You'll be a full-fledged CBET. So we'll set you up with certifications as well, and if you want to keep them and maintain them, you can. And that's all employer paid as well. And for the employers out there, the biggest question I get is what happens if I hire an apprentice and they don't work out? So these are your employees that are trained on your equipment in your facility to your hospital's culture. You hire them through you, not through AAMI. If you want to do it, your organization partners with us. I just vet you and make sure you are legitimate and capable of training a BMET. So anyone here would qualify, but like if a movie theater applied or something, you know, I'd have to reject them. But I just have to make sure, look at the organizations, and then I run it. So you work with me if you have questions or as they go through the program, you just send me their competency lists, and as they do the required learning, you just save their certificates and upload it. And then at the end of 2 years, they get a certificate from AAMI and the Department of Labor saying that they've passed the BMET Apprenticeship. And it's good anywhere. And the same thing, if you hire someone and it doesn't work out, you are not obligated to continue the 2 years. You would work with your HR department and just remove them like any other employee. And then you just let me know and I'd unenroll them nationally. So there's no risk in the sense that you're committed for 2 years if there's a legitimate reason, whether it's conduct or performance. And I know a lot of people were worried about that. I get that question all the time. So we can talk more about it afterwards. I have a separate presentation for that, but that is another pathway if you're interested. And we didn't, and I just always like to preface this with that AAMI created this to create a new pathway into the field, not to compete with the existing BMET academic programs. We are an advocate of education, but the BMET programs that exist right now are producing less than 400 people a year, and we need thousands to keep up with the people leaving. So it's not to replace education or compete with it. And we hope that by people going through the apprenticeship and coming out with college credits, that we're setting them up to eventually go back to school if they want to. And we also realize that not everyone at every phase in their life has the means to go to school. So this gives people another opportunity to go to school, to learn and be in the field if school is not an option for them. So, and it's great for career changers too that may already have a degree. In the curriculum is completely non-duplicative. So if you hire someone that maybe started at a community college and didn't finish, but they've already taken anatomy or math, you don't have to pay for them to retake it as long as they can prove that they've passed it and taken it. So that's a great part too. So if you get someone from a lateral career, the expense from the employer may be less if they've already taken some of the required learning. But I'll go through the whole curriculum later, and we'll keep talking about what HTM is for now. And the second occupation is a clinical engineer. So they assess the needs for new equipment. They are the project managers that help run the projects. BMETs can do this too. And not every hospital has clinical engineers. Typically, the larger hospitals have clinical engineers on staff, but every hospital will have BMET. So they use their engineering skills to look for ways to make hospitals safer. They investigate medical device failures. If someone is hurt or injured on a medical device or there's a mal-outcome, they do the root cause analysis with the hospital safety team. They also help design new care units, and they also provide technical support to clinicians. And how do you become a clinical engineer? Well, most of the clinical engineers have a 4-year engineering degree, whether it be mechanical, electrical, or biomedical. If you're interested in that career pathway, I would also recommend volunteering. Make sure you like it. I don't know why you wouldn't, but just make sure that you get some experience. And just learn as much as you can about healthcare, anatomy and physiology, electronics, chemistry. And then this is kind of the career trajectory, right? So once you've been a good clinical engineer or BMET, there's so much room to move up. So BMETs at hospitals too, let me just back up, typically come in levels. So you could be a BMET 1, 2, or 3, or a senior BMET, or a specialized BMET. Every hospital calls them something a little bit different. But again, as you get more skills, you can move up. And then there's opportunities to manage BMETs and manage the whole department. So the HTM managers and directors, or biomed manager and directors, work closely with hospital senior leadership and their strategic plans. They talk to the C-suite, which is like the executive office. They ensure that the department's meeting all regulatory compliance. That's a huge part of our job. Have you guys heard about CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid? Do you guys know what that is? So that's how hospitals get reimbursed. So Medicaid is for people who cannot afford their own health care. The government pays for them. And Medicare is for people, what, 65 or older? 65 or older. And they, I didn't mean like you were on it. I just
only a year away right now.
I was just fact checking myself. I wasn't like 60, 65 or older. And so people who are 65 or older can get funding from the government to pay for their care. So that's a predominant way that hospitals function, and they get their money from. So in order to get those types of reimbursements, they need to show that they're providing good care, and they get audited every 3 years. If they fail their audit from a regulatory perspective, they risk losing that type of reimbursement, and that could be really detrimental. Like that would cause probably many hospitals to have to close. So it's really important that we are compliant, we're doing things safely, and we're making sure that regulatory is at the utmost priority for the safety of patients. And they also, let's see, they do a lot of data analysis. So they look at how to make things more efficient. So if equipment's breaking all the time, maybe there's something wrong with it, maybe it's a process. So they're constantly doing an analysis of things in their hospital to keep it as efficient as possible. So what's the working environment like for a biomed? So we work with everything from blood pressure cuffs all the way up to MRIs and surgical robots. It's really cool. As technology changes, you are learning something every day. And you work in all areas of the hospital, right? From the laboratory to the ER to the operating room, and even like in research areas of the hospital as well, patient care floors. You are everywhere. Get ready to walk because you're constantly walking around all day long. So what's a typical day for an HTM professional like, or a biomed? So for those of you who are learning about this presentation, the way that we wrote out this day in the life, whether you're explaining this to a clinical engineer, a BMET, or a manager, all these items apply, but what you would do depending on your position is just slightly different. So you can kind of twist it, depending upon the crowd that you're talking to. But, so at 7 a.m., you're going to follow up on your trouble calls from the day before, check in with nursing. At 8 a.m., we're going to go to a morning safety meeting and talk with hospital leaders about challenges in the hospital. Maybe census is high, they're running out of beds. They talk about things like that. At 10 a.m., we're going to round the hospital. It's important to walk around, check in with your customers, make sure everything's working okay, find out what's going on. Then at 12, a water pipe breaks in the OR. So we're going to have to run up and go save all the equipment, move it out, figure out maybe you have to set up a new OR room, so you're not canceling cases. These are stuff we get involved with.
And that's a real situation.
It is. It happens. Yeah. The water. I know. It always happens. When I wrote this, I felt you all would feel for that bullet. At 1 p.m., we're going to go to emergency management meeting with hospital leadership to talk about the problem and figure out how we're going to fix it and what we need to do to make sure patient care isn't disrupted. At 2, we're going to go to a project meeting for a state-of-the-art brand new ER that's being built. So you're going to find out when it's going up, when the equipment's going to be delivered. You're going to help give input to where things should go. And at 3 p.m., you document all your work, right? Because if you didn't document it, you didn't do it. So you need to make sure your documentation is good. And then at 3:30, we call it a day, which we know sometimes you can work longer than that, but you know. So it's just a great career. So you get to have fun while helping other people, right? Every day is different. You're working with cutting edge technology, you're solving problems, and you're making a difference in, you know, people come into hospitals at the most vulnerable times in their lives, right? People are scared, maybe they got bad news. You're here to make sure that they're safe and they have the equipment that they need. So I'm gonna play a really little quick video that we made. I don't know if the sound's gonna work. Oh, it is. So this background music is made 100% of medical device sounds. There's nothing added in at all. The VA in Washington, D.C. let us come in and film medical devices and film their sounds. And we have a musician on staff at AAMI, and he mixed all the sounds. So everything is from a medical device, which is really cool. I think that's my hand recorder too. We weren't allowed to film any people at the VA, so we had to only make everyone anonymous. That's a test log, so when you're testing a ventilator, that's how you simulate it as if it was on a person.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Tell you, it's a really cool job.
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Sorry, I don't know why it's still going. Why is it still playing?
Maybe you need to go back to the content. Okay, this can't be good.
I know. I don't know. It's on pause.
I think somehow it's probably playing in the background.
Yeah, I just don't know how to stop it.
Well,
Yeah. I don't know. What if I shut the volume off on the computer?
that seems like a great idea.
Which one? There we go. Got it. Sorry about that.
We're good. I'm playing now.
Just thought you guys like the song so much. That's never happened before. I've done this a bunch of times.
That's happened before. Sometimes.
What?
But for those of us who present this thing,
Yeah.
is that real live?
What?
What you just experienced? You were really on your website doing
It's
that
on Prezi.
presentation?
Yeah, it's the only way you can use it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we now know what to expect to have happen to us.
Typically, you just click through and it goes on. That's never happened before. So HTM is perfect for people who want to work in a hospital, right? You are in hospitals. You will get the smell, see some blood, bodily fluid. So you got to be okay with that and realize that up front. You won't actually touch a patient. Basically, I explain it is that we handle everything from the wall into the external part of the patient. So nothing inside the patient and nothing inside the wall of the hospital, like the electrical wires or anything like that. So if you want to help others, you love technology or creative, want to work with clinicians, don't want a job where you sit all day, want to learn something new every day, and want a job where no 2 days are the same. And that's the presentation. So if you guys have questions about the field, I'm sure myself and anyone who works in the field that's here would be happy to answer them. Yes.
Okay, so what's the average wage for a BMET?
Yeah, so that's in the adult, that's in the, hang on.
Great
Sorry.
question.
So-
Good to know where.
Yeah, so basically in the
market, where you're working at and your experience. So I know some DoD biomeds graduated at Biomed Schoolhouse out of San Antonio, came to Kansas City at a good time when it was very competitive. We started out at 25, 26 an hour with no experience level.
yes, the medium salary for a BMAT one is 47,000. This was off of a survey BMET 3s make about 74,000, and radiology specialists can make, once you moved up, 6 figures or in the 90K. So it's a really lucrative
And
career.
those numbers there are assuming you work over.
Yeah.
As a biomed, if
Yeah.
you can attest,
yeah.
you work overtime. So between your
There's on-call pay.
your on-call pay,
Yeah.
your call-outs. Right now, we're short-staffed, so I'm working almost 50 hours a week. Just because we're at a point in time we're short-staffed and have a lot of stuff going on.
That's a great point. Yeah, these are with no overtime.
And I
Yeah.
know a lot of biomeds that are making mid-30s, which comes out to about $70,000 a year, that with all their call overtime are clearing 6 figures.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
So,
And again, depending where in the country you are, obviously pays higher in different areas of the country, but this is just on average. Yes.
So now, I may not have fully understood. So is this something that we could probably do with starting with just an associate's degree?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Because we're going to be going through JCCC.
Right.
And you,
The key to it is getting some of this medical equipment background. You heard Danielle talk about medical terminology, and I found that was one of the most important classes I ever took because it helped me talk to the nurses. It helped me understand when they said something to it, okay, I know what that ectomy means or that
Yeah.
holistic meant, that really helps.
and you also work with the medical device vendors.
Right.
So you're kind of like the liaison between the clinical staff, translating clinical jargon to technical talk when you talk to the vendors if you're having trouble.
In an OR, which is where I spend I spend all my day in the OR. And I'm talking to surgeons all the time. So those guys are really highly educated, right? Some of them are a little bit touchy, how do you word? So you kind of have to tailor what you say and how you say sometimes to those folks.
That's where customer
Some you can
service
just talk
comes
to them
in.
like it's your buddy, right? Some you're a little more guarded with that. But it's good to have that base knowledge when you're talking to them. So, anatomy and physiology, it's a deal. You want to know what some of those parts are when they start talking about it. My first thing was, this dates me terribly, but I was turning on a VCR while they're doing arthroscopies. So they would quiz me about what parts were in the knee as they're looking through the scope. Okay, well, I had to learn it. And I'd have to put a little picture up on the side of the monitor so I could cheat. So.
And it's cool. Sometimes the clinicians will let you watch their cases. I got to watch an open heart with a surgical robot. It's really neat, so you really get to see the equipment actually used in action. I always say if you work for the medical device manufacturer, you kind of see it being developed, but you rarely get to see it used clinically. So that's what's so different about this. And you get to see everything because there's so much equipment in hospitals.
I'm going to say something about your lifestyle. Okay, I was late this morning because I had a golf session with 4 doctors that I used to work with. They're all retired. They're all surgeons. And so what you'll learn, what this opportunity, without having to require the rigor that might be necessary to get an engineering degree, you will find as you progress through your life professionally, you will develop peer levels with people who have 20 years of academic experience, 10 years of experience in surgery, in learning surgery. You'll, in fact, it's very likely when you're in your 30s, you will be working with residents who have come through medical school, and they may become your lifelong friends because they are in a learning process that you won't understand until you're actually there, and then you have that kind of connection with the people that you work with. Because nurses are very vigorous and very studious in what they do. It's a skill-specific job. This is an opportunity that doesn't open up in so many other fields unless you want to maintain a 3.5 GPA in an engineering program, in an engineering school. When you think about the rigor that's required to get where she is, you're presented academically, that requires a lot of discipline. And a lot of us aren't built for school, but we are built for working and digging into equipment and having fun and being actively engaged both professionally and mentally. So then, you guys, I'm like Tim, I'm 65. I'm tired of working all the time. So I wanted to retire, but I literally moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico because my wife was tired of the phone ringing for people asking me if I was ready to come out of retirement because the need was so extreme, particularly during the pandemic. And we needed ventilators, we needed this equipment.
And yeah, exactly. And I think if people didn't know about medical equipment in the hospital and how important it is, I think after the pandemic, people do now with the need for ventilators. And, you know, and just to give an example of like creative solutions that BMET or biomeds help do, you know, at a hospital in Boston, they did a lot of testing right on the spot when beds were completely full and they were running out of ventilators. And as a solution, what they did was they ended up because they didn't want their clinicians to contract COVID going in and out of the COVID rooms. So they also wanted to minimize PPE usage because PPE was, when it first happened, no one could get masks and PPE. And what the biomeds did there was they worked with multiple medical device vendors, found external monitors, mirror monitors that they put outside the rooms, connected them to the ventilators, and the respiratory therapists could actually make setting changes outside the room. And, you know, that's a huge clinical solution with the help of biomed because it minimized exposure to the virus, kept clinicians safer, and it also helped minimize the need for PPE because every time you go in, you have to put it on, throw it away, use more. Obviously, there were protocols in place with a safety team where they had to actually go in a certain amount of times a day, but they didn't have to go in every time. And that's things that you guys can do and be a part of to really improve safety at the hospital and really make a difference.
So to add on to that, as a biomed, this field can take you wherever you want to go for whatever cause you want to spend. So I personally did the DoD schoolhouse down at Shepherd Air Force Base, formerly in San Antonio. They paid for all my training. When I got done with it, I did my bachelor's degree and a master's degree online, which saved me money and allowed me to continue to work. So I've got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. I already paid for all of it. So it didn't cost me hardly anything. I've been to anesthesia schools, I've been to ventilator schools. I've had to go into cases for open hearts. I've had to do design things like Danielle's talking about that help provide solutions to the clinicians. This career field can literally take you anywhere you want to go in life. If you want to be a bench tech and work on the fusion pumps, you can do that. If you want to be somebody that's a go-getter and go out there and improve your education, constantly be learning, you can be designing medical equipment. You can be designing solutions in the hospital. You can be working hand in hand with surgeons that are making $750,000 a year, and you're working side by side with them to come solutions so they can do their job better. It's really what you want to do, where you want to go, and how much you want to apply yourself to grow the career field. I'm only 37 years old, and I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've climbed the ranks pretty quickly because of how much I've applied myself to my career, and how much I've been willing to go learn, how much time I've put into advancing my career. There are other guys that have been doing this for 20, 25 years, and they found the niche they wanted to do, and that's what they do. There are people that decided, I really enjoy anesthesia machines. And so they went to work for Draeger or GE or Mindray or whoever it is out there making anesthesia machines right now. And that's all they do. They get in a rental car or a company car that's given to them every day. They drive to a hospital somewhere, and all they do is work on anesthesia machines, and they absolutely love what they do. So it really, if you like working on electronics and you like constantly learning things, and even if you just do anesthesia all day long, you're still going to learn new stuff every day. This is a career field for you. And it's extremely flexible. There's no place in the world you can't go. There are biomed jobs in Dubai,
Yes.
Europe, Africa, Australia.
There's a lot of third world countries that need equipment, and there's like Mercy ships. Didn't you talk about that goes over and brings equipment from the U.S. that that is not being used anymore, and you can be part of that and help set it up in a third world country and really help those areas that don't have access to equipment as well. There's so much you can do. And like I said, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I love this field. I loved doing my work for the past 10 years. And, you know, I really took this role to really help promote the field since there's such a workforce deficit and really give back and, you know, really help drive that enthusiasm in young people like yourselves. Any other questions? We have about 5 more minutes. Right, do we go to 9:30?
So what kind of benefits do you guys offer? Like, so what would a BMET get as benefits?
Well, you're an employee of the hospital, so you get your health, dental, vision, probably a 401k.
There's extra.
Yeah, there's lots of
You get
extra.
sign-up bonuses sometimes.
Yeah,
You get
depending.
paid relocation expenses. Paid training.
Yeah,
This
Paid
is all
additional
negotiation. If you go to get a job, it's a negotiation. We
Yeah.
negotiate for wages, position.
and once you're in, you can move around from company to company, and a lot of people do that to get their salaries higher too.
All of my students had at least, even bare minimum, more students who got off the lecture. At least, those people were probably off literally hard.
And a lot of companies have training programs too, like GE has the Build Bmat, Trimedics has a Tech Plus One program. Does Renovo has a training program too, right?
They do.
Yeah.
They currently have an apprenticeship position open in Ohio.
So one of the things that you guys,
Yeah.
that you guys want to do when you get down to the vendor area, the HTMA has a booth set up on the east side. Hopefully one of you is a Boy Scout, so you can figure out which direction that is. On the east side is our booth, and we have materials from AAMI there, materials from State Technical College, brochures, some from Johnson County Community College, and then also the path that we've came up with that I talked about earlier of attending in-seat at Johnson County and doing the online at State Tech. The GE brochure, their internship program is there as well. And a lot of AAMI booklets about the apprenticeships and the HTM career and some of that background. Again, AAMI is the Bible for us as biomed techs. It is something that you should be familiar with. If you want to get into this field, you need to get involved with AAMI because it's a great resource. And it helps us every day.
And just if anyone wants to get in touch with me, htm@aami.org, you can reach me. I have a real email address, but I man that email box, so it's like emailing me directly anyway. So yes.
If I'm full disclosure, you are expected to repair. So you need to be comfortable with using it.
Yes.
If you're more comfortable with the keyboard and a screwdriver, might not be the career for you. If you're comfortable with the hand tool, screwdriver,
Soldering maybe.
soldering, yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
keyboard,
They're teaching us how to-
this is a good.
Medical network.
Yes,
That
exactly.
is a
Yeah.
whole other side that's brand new.
Yeah.
There's
Cybersecurity.
an
Yeah.
area that is developing as we speak. It's called medical network. And it's really cool.
And a lot of the bigger HTM departments have those positions, like the Mayo Clinic. They have a whole cybersecurity department within their biomed department. So it's just growing.
You as a regular biomed
Yeah.
do a lot of interface
Yes.
with our already existing.
Yes, having computer knowledge is almost necessary now in this field because all of our patient monitors have IP addresses. They all talk to servers.
Well, it's a
Right.
concept.
Yeah.
Well, Drew, the programs, right? You have networking components too. The programs
Yeah.
are right down to the networking department. Actually, goes to Cisco. Yeah.
So
Nice. That's awesome.
you and hope this doesn't offend anybody, kids, you're actually perfect for coming into this field. All of you use your iPhones or Android phones, you play on computers, you play on tablets. All of you are already using technology. People like Tim, Wayne, they didn't come up with that stuff. They had to learn it once they were in the field. And I know a lot of people that are over 50 right now that when that stuff came into play, they had a really, really hard time adjusting to it. All of you are going to come in.
Still do.
Yeah, and it's really, yeah.
And you're already going to have a lot of the tools from playing video games in high school and chatting with your friends normally that you need just to do the job. You're going to know how to interface with things. You're going to know how to make different things talk to each other. So a lot of that computer stuff, you guys are already going to have it done. I'm 37. I had to learn a lot of it when I got to the field because I didn't have that stuff in high school.
Yeah, I mean, I always use the example when I was little, real little, if you had x-rays, you had to carry them from one place to the next. And now, you know, the x-ray machine talks to a computer that talks to the electronic health record and they hit enter and your x-rays end up at the next place, you know? So back in the day, all medical devices were really standalone, and now everything is part of a big medical system that everything talks to one another. So it's exciting.
But the Tim and I spread it, we wheel the mean screwdriver.
If you have
9:30.
questions,
I didn't get to the
you guys-
apprenticeship, but if anyone's interested in email, I mean, I can talk to you guys offline about it.
And again, I'll just say, make sure you stop by the booth down there, and because I have these handouts, you guys need to really take a look at this information. A lot of great information, gives you a path. And again, when you're out there talking with these vendors and you see some of us wandering around, stop us. Most of us are really happy to talk about what we do and how we do it, because you'll find, I think, this consistent with most of the folks that are downstairs. We have a passion for this field. It comes out. All you have to do is just ask, and then you're maybe sorry, but you will hear that passion come through.